study found that the average woman speaks around 20,000 words a day, while the average man only 7,000. Of course, there has to be some sciencey explanation for this phenomenon. God forbid we acknowledge the fact that we women simply have a lot to say, and the less chatty sex would do well to listen to us. Make that 20,001. And because I have a hard time believing that the brain chemistry of men and women has changed so drastically over the last 2,000 years or so, it baffles me that only 1.1% of all words spoken in the Bible are spoken by women. 1.1%. That amounts to roughly 14,000 words. Most women have spoken that many words by people. So, considering how few words in the Bible are spoken by women, it should come as little surprise to us that the unnamed woman in today's account, whom we know only as Simon Peter's mother-in-law, has absolutely nothing to say about her remarkable recovery. Yet, in spite of her saying nothing, she nevertheless manages to make a statement. In verse 31, we're told that Jesus took her by the hand, lifted her up, and without skipping a beat, she was on her feet, serving her. Serving her. Really? Joanna Adams, a former pastor at Fourth Presbyterian Church in Chicago, once remarked in a sermon that verse 31 was one of the funniest verses in the Bible. Talk about get up and go, she said, straight from the sick bed to the cook stove. And the Greek supports this. The Greek word for serve is diakonia, the same word from which we get diaconate or deacon. It literally means to wait on, like a waiter or waitress would do, and that's exactly what she did. She waited on them. The only thing in the text separating the fever leaving her and her serving the guests who had gathered in her home is a single comma. Apparently, no period was required. No stopping necessary, no pausing to recuperate, no lingering symptoms or residual fatigue from the fever, no heating up a quick bowl of chicken noodle before beginning the task of feeding a dozen or so hungry men. Seriously, what a recovery. And Adams is right. It is funny to think of Simon Peter's mother-in-law leaping from her sickbed and running straight to the stove. Especially since most 21st century women would have used 3 of their 20,000 words to say, make it yourself. But what's not funny here is to deny the statement about gender made by the words to the right of the comma in verse 31, and she served them. In John's Gospel, after Lazarus has been raised from the dead, guess what happens? Lazarus is hungry. And we would be too. We've been dead for 4 days. And so, his sister Martha serves him. And I'm sure she's grateful to do so, because it means that he's alive and well and at her table again. But who's feeding Simon Peter's mother-in-law? Of course, we know things were different in first century Palestine. Women weren't second-class citizens. They were the property of men. Their fathers, their husbands, their brothers, their employers, even their own male children outranked them. And so we don't spend proteins maybe haven't evolved much over the past 2,000 years, fortunately for women, our status in society has. A woman's place is no longer in the home. It's also in the House and the Senate, and hopefully one day the Oval Office. Yes. Can I get an amen? Pulpits aren't just for men anymore. For over 2 decades now, more college degrees have been awarded to women than men. Women serve alongside men in the armed forces, and in a few short months will finally have permission to fight the enemy hand to hand on the front lines. And I guarantee you it won't look anything like this. And so speaking of women in history, did you see the controversial Super Bowl ad, Like a Girl, last Sunday? Surprisingly, the controversy was not sparked by the fact that this ad marked the first occasion ever that an ad for pads ran during the Super Bowl. No. Unfortunately, this ad was controversial because it promoted gender equality. This Like a Girl ad featured people being asked to run, throw, and fight like a girl. And instead of simply doing these actions, each person weakly reenacted them by accidentally dropping the ball or slapping instead of punching. But when these same questions were asked of young girls, they ran, threw, and fought aggressively, like anyone would. The implication? To do something like a girl is to do it bad. But the redeeming aspect of the commercial was this. The negative connotation of doing something like a girl is something that's learned over time, and therefore, something that we can change. And let's not kid ourselves. We still need the change, don't we? Gender equality simply does not exist. The phrase, like a girl, is similar to saying something is so gay. Both are used in a derogatory manner. The terms gay and girl are not synonymous with being weak or stupid. These are identities. So when someone uses these identifiers, whether it's sexual orientation, ethnicity, or gender, as an insult, it becomes very problematic for our society. According to Huffington Post, when the commercial originally aired back in June, it received a lot of positive attention. But it wasn't until Sunday's Super Bowl, which was reportedly watched by some 115 million people, that the verbal backlash really began, and most of it on social media. Within minutes of the ad airing, women took to Twitter to describe what they do like a girl, and how their gender doesn't stop them from being strong and powerful. I serve my country like a girl. Engineering, like a girl. Setting high jump records, like a girl. But you know what they say, haters gonna hate. So in no time at all, critics and self-proclaimed, you ready for this? Meninist, that's the opposite of feminist, in case you were wondering, also took to social media to gripe that it was unfair that the Always ad pertained only to women. A new hashtag quickly popped up. Guess what it was? Like a girl. Boy. And we started seeing tweets like these. Hashtag like a boy because equality matters. baby girl, and I want to see you tell her what she's incapable of. But here's the thing. As much as I want to bask in the positivity of this ad campaign and the empowering effect it's having on our society, I refuse to do so wholeheartedly. Because even the Like a Girl hashtag itself is proof that sexism is still a very real part of our culture. And in spite of how far we've come, we've still got further to go. Until we have just as many women as men in public office, we still have further to go. Until gender pay gaps are a thing of the past, we still have further to go. Until women can walk down the sidewalk in any city without street harassment, catcalls, or horn honking, we still have further to go. Until women aren't afraid to speak up more during meetings because they're afraid they'll be interrupted by a man or have their idea taken over and stolen by a man, we still have further to go. Want to know more about this? Read the New York Times op-ed piece from a couple weeks ago entitled "Speaking While Feeding." Until pornography, sex trafficking, and prostitution is eradicated, we still have further to go. Until we don't need ad campaigns and hashtags to empower women, because we know we're fierce and strong and important and capable, we still have further to go. And until voiceless, nameless women aren't remembered for their service to men, but for their service to God and country and society, we still have further to go. So how do we get there? Remember verse 31? We laughed at what was to the right of the comma. But what about what's to the left? Jesus came, took her by the hand, and lifted her up. The fever left her, calm, and she began to serve her. He lifted her up. He didn't heal her. At least that's not what the Greek says. The Greek says that he resurrected her. He restored her to life with a capital L. He brought her back to the place where she belonged, not so that she could serve them, but so that she could be her true self again. Whole, beloved, perfect, just the way she is. Have you ever been brought back from the brink? Has someone ever touched you and brought you back to yourself? Reminded you of who you really are? A person of value? A person with purpose and promise? A person who is loved, not with a comma, but completely loved. Period. Jesus doesn't say a word. He doesn't announce that her faith has made her well or that she is forgiven. He simply touches her. And as voiceless as the woman herself, he restores her from something contagious and threatening to someone strong and capable of service. I'd like to think of Jesus' voiceless healing as an act of solidarity with a voiceless woman. And we do well to pay attention. We do have voices. And whether we speak 20,000 words a day or 7,000, it doesn't matter. using our voices is an insult to the voiceless. And that using our voices